Hey, I just wanted to tell you something that I ran across after posting my video about Boniface III, who was shot by a poison arrow. And I told you how when there were highlighted words, and when I clicked on arrow poison on that page talking about his historical significance, it took me to poisons that they used on the tip of an arrow that I described to you, and there were two things on there: the poison dart frog and the Hydra. And I told you there's an artist that painted a painting back in the 1800s, and it was of the Hydra, and he named it the Beast of Revelation. That happened in the 1800s. So now with, and I misquoted the doctor's name. Her last name has a J at the end, so I said Madej, but it's Madej. So I need to fix that. Dr. Madej. She was analyzing the solution, you know what I'm talking about, and she found these organisms that lifted themselves up off the microscope slides, and she showed them clearly and plainly and identified them as the Hydra organism. But what really shocks me is that when I was researching her, I ran across some unknown information that did not come out when she showed that. And she's supposed to be a Christian that believes in Yeshua as her Messiah and has no reason to lie about such a thing. But I found these two sentences that I wanted to add to my video, and it says that a certain doctor, worldwide in control, AF are his initials, has been sponsoring research on Hydra for more than 2 decades. In fact, his facility, initials NIH, has an entire subsection of its website dedicated to the Hydra 2.0 Genome Project. And then you can click on entire subsection and it will take you to the Genome Project, showing that they were curious about how this would affect humans. It goes on to say, Kingston also pointed to a study that found that Hydra has about the same number of genes as humans, sharing many of the same ones, and that they also found in the Hydra genes linked with Huntington's disease and with plague formation seen in Alzheimer's disease. She compared the symptoms associated with these diseases with those being experienced by some who have received the you-know-what juice, such as body tremors in those who have lost control of their neurological system. She believes people are being injected with the transgenic Hydra, which she also describes as an organism with DNA from other organisms incorporated into it. So, not only did she find these things on the microscopic slides, but she has this information about that this has been a project. They were curious as to what would happen if they injected it into humans, and because it can replicate itself and all of that and it never die. And anyway, these are facts. You can actually go to that website, and I will try to post that so you can look it up for yourself. But I have to be careful what I say, and please don't put any of those words down in the comments section of what I'm connecting this to. This is the first thing I wanted to talk about tonight, because this was in addition to finding the Roman guy that was shot with a poison arrow, and then taking me to the website of poisons they used on the tip of an arrow to kill people, and then finding the connection to the artist in the 1800s that called the Hydra the Beast of Revelation. That's not something that just happened after this thing spread around. This is something that was already called that long, long ago. The very fact that they've been researching them for 2 decades or more and wanting to experiment to test this out would explain exactly why she found that in the solution. And I'm sure she probably did not know that when she was finding those things under the microscope. They seem to know that it took its name from the Greek mythology for this. So they must have known that it was considered a beast of revelation when they were experimenting with it. Now I'm just going to show you a link to that so you can look it up for yourself. It's called Hydra 2.0 Genome Project Portal, about the Hydra 2.0 Genome Project, Hydra magnapapillata, now called Hydra vulgaris, strain 105, originated from a single polyp collected by Itsutoma Sugiyama in a swamp adjacent to the National Institute of Genetics in Mishima, Japan, in September 1973. DNA for genomic sequencing was isolated from approximately 1,000 polyps of strain, 105 from the laboratory of Hans Bode, University of California, Irvine. Sanger sequencing was performed at the 3 Craig Venter Institute in 2010, producing an assembly with 6 times coverage with a scaffold NSO of 92.5 kb, whatever that means, medical terms. In 2015, DNA samples from this same strain were isolated by Rob Steele. Chicago libraries were then generated by Dovetail Genomics, with library sequencing performed by the Genomics High Throughput Facility in the University of California, Irvine. The new assembly, subsequently generated by Dovetail Genomics, called Hydra 2.0, has a scaffold N50 of, it has like an NA 1 MB. For additional information, comments, or questions regarding the Hydra 2.0 Genome Project, please contact Dr. Steele. And then it gives his web address. Changes to the Hydra 2.0 Genome Project portal and underlying data are documented in the release history. So they've been working with this for quite some time. They got it out of a swamp in 1973. Can you say, I saw a beast rising out of the sea? That gives that whole new term and a whole new meaning. I'm just going to take a picture of that and post it so you can see that it's a legitimate laboratory research project. Now, they also have this research, and there's an address. I'm going to put these addresses in the description box under where it has little stars and then it says Kimberly's Research. And this one's called Hydra 2.0 Web Portal, NHGRI Research Server. And this one actually shows a picture of the Hydra. Okay, so let me read what that says. Hydra, a hydrozoan cnidarian that takes its name from the eponymous creature in Greek mythology. So they knew that. Due to its remarkable capacity for regeneration, can be thought of as one of the very first model organisms with its unique properties, first described and studied by Anton van Leeuwenhoek in Abraham Tremblay in the early 1700s. Hydra has a morphologically simple body plan, a thin tubular and radially symmetrical body whose body wall is comprised of two layers of cells, the endoderm and the ectoderm. The free end of the organism is characterized by a ring of tentacles that contain synoctites, the specialized stinging cells used to paralyze, capture prey that are a common characteristic of all cnidarian species. Hydra possesses a basal disc at the opposite end of its body, with the basal disc secreting an adhesive fluid that allows it to secure itself to surfaces. While Hydra does not possess a brain, it does possess a nerve net that confers the ability to sense and respond to environmental stimuli. While normally sessile, Hydra are capable of locomotion by creeping, as well as through distinctive looping and somersaulting maneuvers. Hydra is also capable of morphaxis, a remarkable regenerative process where, after sustaining an injury, the organism is able to essentially reorganize its body, producing a smaller yet complete version of itself. Hydra continues to be a very valuable experimental model for the study of numerous biological processes, including regeneration, senescence, axial patterning, cell signaling, and development. These types of studies have been greatly facilitated by the original sequencing of the genome of Hydra vulgaris, formerly called Hydra magnipopetalata, in 2010, and its resequencing using novel long-range sequencing approaches in 2015. The Hydra Genome Project portal is intended to facilitate access to and use of the immense amount of large-scale sequencing data generated both by transcriptomic efforts through an intuitive and easy-to-use interface. The scope of data available through this portal goes well beyond the sequence data available through GenBank, providing additional biological information intended to increase the utility of these sequencing data. A customized interactive genome browser is also provided to facilitate data visualization and biological discovery. It is hoped that the availability of these data will allow investigators to advance their own research projects aimed at understanding fundamental processes of relevance to human health. So that's from research.nhgri.nih.gov. So now you've seen that with your own eyes, and that explains why she found that on the microscopic slides when she analyzed that. So there's certain things that I can't talk about with it. If you want to see what Dr. Carrie Madej says about it, she was on the Stu Peters show, of course, revealing that her pictures of what she discovered in the solution. And then, I'm just bringing this forward, that they have had this genome project on the Hydra for, since they drug it out of a swamp in 1973, as their own website said at that laboratory. So if you want to check that out, you can go to everydayconcerned.net. I'm just going to kind of connect this to what I discovered that I shared with you in that video before about the Hydra. I was researching about Boniface III having nothing at all to do with the Hydra, the Beast of Revelation, or any of that whatsoever. And I was researching this in regards to historical significance of this man. Boniface III, he was by appointment Margrave of Tuscany from 1027 until his assassination in 1052. Now, there was more to this story in the other video about the Boniface III, so you might have to look up my prior video on it. But it said he tried to restrict the rights of his Valvassores despite Conrad's imperial edict of 1037. It was this action against his under-tenants which got him killed in 1052 during a hunting expedition. It was an assassination, and it goes on to say that while Boniface was preparing a ship, a galley, for a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, this man held a grudge, shot him with a poisoned arrow on the river Oglio near Martino dell'Argine in the region of Spinetta while on the hunt. So when you see these words that he was preparing the galley, the ship, for a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, says shot him with a poisoned arrow. Then you click on poisoned arrow, and it tells you, it talks about poisons secreted from the skin of the poisoned dart frog. And then it tells you after that, poisoned arrows have featured in mythology, notably the Greek story of Hercules slaying the centaur Nessus using arrows poisoned with the blood of the Lernaean Hydra. The Greek hero Odysseus poisons his arrows with Hellebora in Homer's Odyssey. Poisoned arrows also figure in Homer's epic about the Trojan War, the Iliad, in which Achaeans and Trojans used toxic arrows and spears. Poisoned arrows are referred to in the book of Job in the Bible, descriptive of the sufferings experienced by the just man. The modern terms toxic and toxin derive from the ancient Greek word for bow, toxon, from the Old Persian taxa, an arrow. And that's what we saw with the rider on the white horse in the book of Revelation that has a bow. And this is what I told you. Steve Chickenlatte, the pastor from Australia, talked about this. And it just happens to be under poison arrow, that information. Poisoned arrows were used by real people in the ancient world, including the Gauls, ancient Romans, and the nomadic Scythians and Soans. Ancient Greek and Roman historians describe recipes for poisoning projectiles in historical battles, which poison arrows were used. Alexander the Great encountered poisoned projectiles during his conquest of India, probably dipped in the venom of Russell's viper, and the army of the Roman general Lucullus suffered grievous poisonous wounds from an arrow shot by nomads during the Third Mithracic War, 1st century BC. It says, in the kingdom of Cush, arrows were often poison-tipped. There is some indication that poisoned arrows were used in battle against the Romans from 27 to 22 BC. The use of poisoned arrows in hunting and warfare by some Native Americans has also been documented. Over the ages, Chinese warfare has included projectiles poisoned with various toxic substances. How ironic that that's where this plague came from. Interesting, huh? Now you can click on the word, the Lernaean Hydra, or Lernaean Hydra, Hydra of Lerna, is more often known simply as the Hydra, is a serpentine water monster in Greek and Roman mythology. Water monster. I saw a beast rising out of the sea. Its lair was like the lake of Lerna in Argolid, which was also the site of the myth of the Danaids. Lerna was reputed to be an entrance to the underworld, and archaeology has established it as a sacred site older than Mycenaean Argos. In the canonical Hydra myth, the monster is killed by Hercules as the second of his 12 labors. And then I showed you Gustave Moreau's 19th century, that's the 1800s, depicted in a painting of his, the Hydra, influenced by the beast from the book of Revelation. Let me show that to you again. And this was connected to the beast of Revelation in the 1800s, not just in 2020 when this situation happened. Now let me just add here that the painter Gustave Moreau, he was a French painter. He was called a symbolist painter. And they were artists who emphasized dreams and ideals. The decadents cultivated précieux, ornamented or hermetic styles, and morbid subject matters. The subject of the decadence of the Roman Empire was a frequent source of literary images and appears in the works of many poets of the period, regardless of which name they chose for their style. Symbolism was a late 19th century art movement of French, Russian, and Belgian origin in poetry and other arts, seeking to represent absolute truths symbolically through language and metaphorical images, mainly as a reaction against naturalism and realism. So this painting of the Hydra that was done in the 19th century, showing the Hydra as the beast of Revelation, is basically showing that he's trying to represent absolute truths, and that this Hydra happened to be what they used on the tip of poisoned arrows. Now, I read this before, but I'm just connecting it to the fact that I just found the experimentation that's been going on since 1973 with this organism. And the AF doctor in charge has been, experimenting with this for over 2 decades now, probably more like 4 decades. And it's just incredible. It says, according to Hesiod, the Hydra was the offspring of Typhon in Echidna. It had poisonous breath and blood so virulent that even its scent was deadly. The Hydra possessed many heads, the exact number of which varies according to the source. Later versions of the Hydra story add a regeneration feature to the monster. For every head chopped off, the Hydra would regrow 2 heads. Hercules required the assistance of his nephew, Lolas, to cut off all the monster's heads and burn the neck using the sword and fire. Greek and Roman writers related that Hera replaced the Hydra and crab as constellations in the night sky after Hercules slew him. When the sun is in the sign of Cancer, Latin for the crab, the constellation Hydra has its head nearby. In fact, both constellations derived from the earlier Babylonian signs Mashmu, the venomous snake, and Alutu, the crayfish. So now it's not only connecting the Hydra to the beast of Revelation from the 1800s painting, but also to these constellations in the night sky and to Babylon itself. Are we talking about the book of Revelation, mystery, Babylon the Great, the beast that rises from the sea, from the, sea of peoples, actually? But this is something that is a monster in the water, connected to the serpent, I might add, a venomous snake. It says about the Hydra Constellation, portrait of Henry IV as Hercules pinning the Hydra of Lerna, an allegory of the Navarrese king's defeat of the Catholic League during the French Wars of Religion, workshop of Toussaint and Dubreuil, circa 1600. Not going to believe this connection. If you click on Hydra Constellation, it says Hydra is the largest of the 88 modern constellations, measuring 1,303 square degrees, and also has the longest at over 100 degrees. Its southern end borders Libra and Centaurus, and its northern end borders Cancer. It was included among the 48 constellations listed by the 2nd century astronomer Ptolemy. Commonly represented as a water snake, it straddles the celestial equator. Now let me just show you the map. They show the list of stars in Hydra constellation. This is from royalty-free Hydra clip art. This is the constellation Hydra. Looks like a serpent. Now, is that incredible? It connects it to a water snake, connects it to a serpent, and the beast of Revelation, and the poisoned arrow. It says, when you click on water snake, different snakes are called water snakes. Water snake is also sometimes used as a descriptive term for any snakes that spend a significant time in or near fresh water belonging to the family Acrocordidae. They should not be confused with the sea snakes, which live primarily or entirely in marine environments. It's really astonishing to connect all of this together because I just found these other parts of it, and it's really stunning. So let me ask you, why are we all of a sudden seeing the Hydra in solutions that they've been researching since 1973? Why are we just now seeing this right when we're about to enter the time of Jacob's trouble, the tribulation, and the unfolding of the rest of the book of Revelation? Why would it be revealed now? So I'm going to stop right there, and if I find any more information out, I'll add it to this. But please go back and watch the first video where I talked about the Roman Boniface III and revealed everything about the poison arrow and how he died and how it was tipped with the poison from the Hydra. And all of these connections are just unreal. Who would ever guess it would be all connected to these things? So, thanks for your support, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Shalom.